Well, Major, just getting back after the game, what do you tell your team after this one? A big win, the 24-hour rule, moving on, that kind of stuff, just to get their mind now focused on East Carolina.
Just what we always do. There's never too high after a win, never too low after a loss. Evaluate what we need to do, offensively, defensively. Still, there's plenty of stuff to correct. There's just some things that we talked about defensively. There's a lot of things that are going to tickle your ears because of the consecutive win streak and a number of points scored in games consecutively that we got to go back and we got to look at why did we not take the ball away? Why were we soft on the edge in terms of tackling? Why did we have one thrown over our head again? We've got to go back and evaluate those things defensively, offensively. I'm on the same headsets as the offensive staff. Why did it take us such a slow start to get going and make adjustments? What is our understanding of situational football on third down, catching a ball 2 yards in front of the chains and not getting the first down, not having two hands on the ball inside the tackles. There's still things that can get you beat that you can't ignore in victory, and we need to, pay attention to that. That was the message with the team and the coaching staff, and went back to work yesterday.
You had told us after the game about you looked at film at the hotel and kind of having an option like they had with Quentin, with De'Eric. Now that you have almost a full 4 quarters on him, you even joked about getting him more involved, a lot more. How do you handle the quarterbacks now? I mean, you've got 3 guys you've used at some point this year. Still a week to week, or would you like to now just kind of turn over and see how De'Eric responds in a game after this one?
Number one, I'm grateful that we have 3 guys that can go in and win games as starters, and that's something that's very difficult to have in college football. And all 3 of those guys have gone in and won games on the road at Arizona, a really good football team. Whether it's on the road at Temple, on the road at South Florida, all 3 of those guys have done a tremendous job. The consistency in the decision making and taking care of the football is always going to be paramount, and what you do, what you can do with your arm or what you can do with your feet is irrelevant, compared to ball security. So we need consistency from that position. We need to put those guys in the position to where they can have consistent play. As coaches, we need to bear that responsibility as well. But De'Eric did a great job of making plays with his feet, also making throws in the throw game, and just being ultimately competitive and handling the situation down the stretch in 2 minutes. So just want to see consistency from that position, for overall offensive success.
Does it start this week, or do you kind of wait again?
We're going to watch him throughout the week, but right now, yes, he's a starter. He took on a lot of hits. Was limited yesterday in what he could actually do. So we have to evaluate that throughout the week and, make the best decision, obviously, on Saturday. But right now, yes, he's starting on Saturday, considering everything goes well health-wise.
Yeah, I did want to ask just about him, not to compare him, but people automatically look at his style, and Greg Ward comes to mind, just the way he moves around, the way he does things, and obviously that's not fair to him, but you've been around quarterbacks all your life. Just curious what you see in him, or when you got here, what you saw in him, that the potential and kind of having a talent like that where you have been trying to get him on the field in some capacity for the last 2 years.
Yeah. Not to overstate it, but, quarterbacks, number one, you want to see that they're really competitive people. In general. Forget about whether they're a pocket guy or a dual threat guy or an athlete, just competitive people. You wanted a competitive person behind center. And I saw that from him early on, just in the recruiting process, just how serious he was, his family, the way they approach football as a family, very, very serious, very, very competitive. Then you go to his high school, and they've won a lot of football games there. And they've got a lot of great coaches and a lot of great players, so he's used to being around a lot of winning. And that's very, very important. You have a competitive person that expects to win, and that's all 3 of our quarterbacks because they've all won. But that's specifically with De'Eric. Those are some of the qualities you see from him.
Coach, just kind of talk about this. What about this week's opponent, ECU? Just kind of what stands out to you the most about them?
Well, the way it's such a momentum, kind of game. The way they played last week, 2 weeks ago against BYU, played really well. They had a change defensively early in the season. You saw them settle down and play better from a defensive standpoint, and a lot of momentum. It's college kids, so 18 to 22-year-old guys. They held them to 17 points, won a game at home. They're playing better on that side of the football. Cirque, a really good quarterback, big physical guy that can, that can hurt you with his feet. He's faster than you think. Also has really good touch on the ball, can make some throws, and then you see their wideouts outside make plays as well, and also their tight ends. So they've scored points. I mean, we watched them in getting ready for the South Florida game, and they scored 31 or 38 against South Florida, so they can score points. So we have to do what every other team in college football who won last week has to do. Forget about it and move on. And we talked about it yesterday and laughed and joked with them and said, you just can't listen to what your classmates say. You can't listen to all the nice things that are said. And sometimes it's going to be the people closest to you. Might be your wife, might be your mom, might be your dad, bragging on you. But you got to throw that stuff off and get ready for the next one, because this game is crazy. Anybody can beat anybody, so you got to be ready to go.
Major, that one series that Mulba had the 4 carries and kind of did it all on his own, running wise. We've heard the potential and we've heard what kind of runner would he was. That best maybe exemplify what this guy's capable of doing, and the fact that you're going to need him for the next several weeks. Is that some encouragement there?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a combination, and I'm proud that Mulba had some success in the game. No doubt. Proud of that drive. We needed that as an offense. He stepped up. He ran the ball well during that drive. But there's a lot of things that go into that in terms of the players, the offensive linemen, the wide receivers, tight ends, blocking, the coaches making adjustments to get into some favorable plays in the second half to where we could have some success. The thing that we've got to continue to work on and talked with Mulba yesterday in the team meeting is, how do we take care of the ball throughout the course of a game? All of us, there's 120 however many FBS schools there's backs that can run with the football and make yards. So how do you take care of it, and how do you protect the passer and stay on the field more as a tailback? Yeah. We had seen that before. We've seen that before, a great first half. It was great to see a great second half, and belief is a powerful thing, and it was good to see them do something in the second half against a really good offense. They had proven that they could play 30 minutes against some other really good offenses, but to finish a game the way they did, I think brings about more confidence, whether it's making free throws down the stretch, getting outs down the stretch, making pars and birdies down the last 3 holes, whatever it is, that there's a belief factor in whatever sport it is, that when you finally accomplish it, especially with a lack of competitive experience, when you don't have some of the guys that are on these walls, it's very important, when you do that on the road against a good offense. So now it's like bringing home straight A's. So now it's expected every 9 weeks.
Major, so much goes into preparing for a game, but I noticed you guys put out your scout team players of the week, and Bryson was the offensive one. Was he running scout team last week, mimicking Quentin Flowers? And can you just kind of speak to what having a guy like that's got a lot of potential can do to help you simulate a quarterback like Flowers?
It does. It helps tremendously. I think the story was 2 years ago. Jalen Hurts was doing that with Deshaun Watson when Alabama won the national championship. So that helps tremendously. And, Bryson is a guy who gives 100% effort, so he was giving him great looks on that end. And I heard some of the defensive players talking about it Friday at the hotel about what kind of looks he had given him, and I said, that's great. He's going to simulate the speed of Quentin, but Quentin's also a guy who carries about 15, 20 more pounds on him. So he's a lot thicker and more difficult to tackle than a guy who's 175 pounds. So he did a great job for us last week.
I know it's late in the season, but when you have a guy like that, and the same thing was with De'Eric last year, did he have the ability, or were there any conversations about let's get him on the field, maybe at receiver if you needed a receiver, or have you been real careful with Bryson to say, hey, we don't want to burn a year if we don't necessarily have to?
Right. And there's a couple guys in that conversation that we don't want to burn a red shirt if we have to. Now for the most part, we've said, hey, play him. We don't have a lot of roster numbers, so play him. But as the season's gone on, there's some guys where we haven't had to take those red shirts off. And so now counting 3 games, we want to try to keep those on as best we can.
Just a couple of personnel stuff. Corbin, wonder is it physical, or is it just in terms of his role the last, especially this past week? Normally he would be in there. Is there
Right.
anything to that, or?
Just no, he did not travel with us to Tampa. He's been traveling, been playing, but nothing illegal or anything like that. Just need to hit reset and move on and just kind of refocus.
Anything on the guys that we talked about after the game, or that had left the game, Leday, Duke, or
Right
Josh?
now, John Leday is out, as is Josh Jones. Both those I know for sure are not playing. The others are all recovering to play, questionable, probable, maybe, all those things.
So Jared would play left, or is that a situation now that you have a week, can you flip some guys that have played the tackle? So you'll look at different
Yep.
things.
So we've got to build depth throughout the week. Obviously Jared came in and finished, but Braylon has played tackle as well. We've got other guys on the depth chart play tackle. Can make some movements inside. Marcus Oliver's got some experience playing tackle as well. So there's some lineups that work.
Okay. And a play that I guess a lot of people didn't look at late, but it was a huge impact. Brandon McDowell's had some really big runs for you this year. So has Leday in the return game. That huge one to set y'all up near midfield. It really kind of flipped the field and gave y'all some short, real estate to work with there.
Yep. I mean, I had a wise coach tell me a long time ago, said, hey, listen, when you go on the road, you're going to need to make a great special teams play, whether it's a block punt, kickoff return, something. And, we were on the bad end of it last week. And on the good end of it this week, thought it was a great adjustment by Ken Pope. Says a lot for that unit. He pointed out yesterday in special teams that on that unit at the end of the game, you have so many guys that are playing throughout the course of the game that sometimes guys, are either injured or can't go because they just finished a defensive series. There were 6 new guys on that unit, and they still went out and executed. And Brandon did a great job filling in as a returner, getting the ball into plus territory and allowing us to go score there at the end. But it's just, it's good coaching to get those guys prepared and to recognize what you need to do return-wise. And it's just great execution and just answering the call from a player standpoint. That's the thing that makes you proudest, is understanding that some of those guys hadn't had a whole bunch of reps, but there was no excuses. They went out there and got their block and got their job done.
Jared Carter got in the game.
Gerard, yeah.
Gerard, I'm sorry. Is it a matter of slowly bringing him, or is he to the point? I mean, he had a setback against Tulsa, so it's only been 2 weeks now. Is you going to bring him in slowly?
Yeah, it's a lot of it's on him, and he played and was effective early on, but it's going to be how he continues to play and how he feels on it, and you know how that is with injuries. It's guys pushing themselves and finding, just keep continually stepping out of that comfort zone and extending their capabilities.